how to detect them. And what they were able to detect were these waves created by two black holes colliding over 1 billion years ago. So you know how when you look at the stars, that light isn't current light, but historical light because of the way light moves through space. So the same thing is sort of true of these gravitational waves. You can only detect them long after their initial creation. And these waves, they pass around us and through us, and we have no idea because it doesn't affect our bodies and we can't see them in the way that we can see light. They're imperceptible to the human experience. Only these highly sensitive detectors can pick them up. But what this means is that we can now listen to the universe in a way we never could before. Before we could see, we could watch the universe, but now we can hear it, is how the scientists talk about it. And what these waves are is a clue into the universe and its beginnings, a clue into how everything works. They are basically breaks or shifts in the space-time continuum. That's what these things are. I read it described this way. You have to imagine a lake with a perfectly calm surface. And on it are laid two ropes. And as long as the lake stays perfectly calm, those two ropes are never going to touch. But if you drop a rock and a wave comes along, they might sort of accidentally bump each other in the course of this wave and then sort of go back to their placid side-by-side state. It doesn't mean that time travel is anywhere on the horizon, so don't get too excited. But it does mean something pretty incredible. For a tiny, tiny moment, I think it was like 1/5 of a nanosecond or something, crazy tiny moment, scientists heard and recorded, so we all can hear, you can find it on the internet, the sound of two enormous black holes colliding over 1 billion years ago. If you think about that for a second, it is mind-blowing. We have a way through our advanced technology to be connected to the world not only across space but across time. If you listen to that tiny clip, it really is short, you might easily hear it and think, oh, what a nice birdie sound. It sounds like this little chirp. But when you remember that it is two black holes, each of which is more than 29 times the mass of the sun, colliding 1 billion years ago, it doesn't sound like a bird anymore. It sounds like a way into everything. There are a lot of things in science that I don't fully grasp. I am no rocket scientist, but I grasp the parts that are about creativity and about connection, about more deeply realizing the fundamental unity of our beings, realizing the fundamental connections between all things across space and across time. I grasp the piece of our scientific advancements that are about understanding how tiny we are in the vastness of the universe. And it makes me think of this quote by Edgar Mitchell, the astronaut. He said this in 1971, and you'll forgive my language, it's a quote. He said, "From out there on the moon, international politics looks so petty. You want to grab a politician by the scruff of the neck and drag him 250,000 miles out and say, look at that, you son of a bitch." That's what he said. Now, we're not talking about international politics today, but we're talking about love and about what a community looks like, about what it means to create borders and throw up walls and stop listening, and what it looks like to listen again, to be open to being changed, to stay ready to move forward. Last Sunday, we put up out there, you can see it if you look through the door, a piece of paper on the wall. 2, actually, because we wanted to make sure the kids could also participate. And we asked you, this congregation, to write on Post-its your social justice passion and stick it to the wall. Our hope, as you know, is to find something that we might concentrate on as a congregation next year. Something that we can do while we're still doing all the other wonderful things we do, but something that we can do and focus on as a group. Many of you have put up thoughts, and I am extremely grateful for that. It's good to get as much input as possible as we work towards this focus. But when I came in on Thursday, I found something unexpected. Someone, and I will say now, I have no idea who, whether it was a participant in this congregation's life or one of the participants in one of our tenant groups, someone had crossed out words on some of the Post-its and written over them. Now you may guess, if I gave you enough time to guess about it, you may guess that someone crossed out Black Lives Matter and wrote All Lives Matter. You might have come to that guess. And I think that it should be obvious that this kind of defacing, this kind of silencing of another's passion in order to promote one's own is unwelcome. But I will reiterate here, I'm having Rita tell all of our tenants, and I am saying to you now here, it is unacceptable to cross out someone else's words. It's unacceptable to silence their thoughts and passions in order to promote your own. It's antithetical to what we are about here. It's not okay. Whatever the message had been, whether it was Black Lives Matter or something else entirely, it's not okay. Our community, by our covenant, doesn't do this sort of thing. We sit in meetings until the wee hours so that we can listen to each other. That's what we do, right? So, if it was someone from among us here, I welcome you to come and speak with me. You do not have to, but I welcome you to. And I ask all of us to remember that this is a place and must be a place of healthy exchange of ideas, honest and open exchange of ideas, in a way that does not silence any of us. Okay? So that said, I am taking the defacing as an invitation to me to come around to try and explain again why I, alongside of countless others, feel strongly about that statement, Black Lives Matter, and why I and others are having a hard time fully understanding the All Lives Matter retort. And I want to place it in a larger context because today isn't particularly about racial justice. That wasn't today's plan. Today is about a larger question of love and how love works in our Unitarian Universalist world and ways of being and what our ethics call us to as Unitarian Universalists. So I want to start this way. I'm going to do a little survey. You do not have to participate, but if you are willing, you can just raise your hand when I ask a question, okay? Who's in favor of women's rights? Okay, so gosh, that must mean that every single one of you who raised your hand hate men and think they deserve to have no rights. Okay? Who thinks immigrants should be treated like people? Then I guess what you're saying is naturally born citizens should not be treated as people. Right? I'm going to keep going because I want to drive this home. Do you believe in animal rights? So people don't matter at all, do they? Right? Refugees from Syria, should they be given a chance to live peacefully and safely in the world? Then I guess you think the rest of us deserve to live in violent, war-torn countries. Right? How many of you think children shouldn't go hungry? Starve the elderly. You understand my point here, right? You see where I'm going. For some reason, the Black Lives Matter movement rallying cry is taken to mean Black Lives Matter more than white lives, more than cops, more than insert whatever there. But that's not what it means. It no more means that than feed the children is a slogan for a nonprofit intent on starving old people, right? It's not that way. What it does mean is that a group that has historically been marginalized, treated as less than, killed, lynched, raped, separated from their families, enslaved, segregated, economically abused, kept down. Finally, that group is saying to the rest of us, and some of us are saying too, hey, we matter. We matter also, despite all of these institutional systematic things that make it seem like we don't. Hey, you may think we don't, but we do. Or maybe you think we do, but you aren't acting like it. That's what that cry means. It's saying you aren't supporting policies that are consistent with the belief that we matter. You aren't demanding action in our cultural and legal systems that is consistent with the belief that we matter. The rallying cry of Black Lives Matter means that right now, in this America we live in, Black lives seem to not matter. And those of us taking up the cry are saying they do. They do matter. And in fact, the deep theological belief that we hold in the inherent worth and dignity of every person, our deep theological belief that all lives matter, means that we have to take up that rallying cry. It means that we have to open our eyes and see when a person or a group is not being treated as inherently worthy and full of dignity. And then we have to be part of the cry that says, America, you are not standing by your ideals, our ideals. Unitarian Universalists, we are not standing by our ideals. We are not holding on to an ethics of love, and that is what we are called to do. Whether we are talking about Black Lives Matter, or immigrants, or refugees, or animal rights, or children's rights, the right to clean air and water, the earth's right to be free from our pollution and experience our care rather than our maltreatment, ours is an ethics of love, and not Valentine's Day romantic love, obviously. Not partnered love, not even the love between friends, but the love that surrounds like an ether. That love that Emerson speaks of. The love that surrounds us and is available to all of us. The love that holds us and supports us and makes life worth living. That great love with a capital L that expresses itself in so many ways. Friendships, partners, families, random acts of kindness towards strangers. That feeling of wholeness we get when we transcend the momentary and small. That love, that big love, that endless big love. It's a love that is hard to explain, but that we know when we feel it humming around us, living and breathing in and among us. A lot of people will say to Unitarian Universalists, there's no dogma, so what binds you? Or can you believe whatever you want? Or what do you believe, right? Well, we believe that dogma isn't the only thing that can bind a people. We believe that religion isn't the only thing that can bind the world. We believe in goodness and kindness and compassion and openness as virtues worth striving toward. And we Unitarian Universalists have what I would call an ethics of love. We have that belief in unity. We hold up the belief that if you go a million miles out, we are all the same, a part of this same wondrous living thing. And that in fact, all the way up close, we are all the same. Made of the same stuff, part of the same universe and experiences. We believe that the divisions we create among us are false divisions. I'm not going to say that it is an easy thing to live into the great big love and live in the world with no divisions, no us and them, no these people and my people. It's not easy, but it's an ideal that we have to strive toward. It's an ideal that we are called to. That is what inherent worth and dignity, love-filled ether, the unity of all things, the transcendent wholeness, living, being, and wonder, that is what all of that is calling every one of us to. Calling us to live in the world with love at the forefront. And I'm sorry, but love does not shut its ears and refuse to grow and change. Love doesn't dig in its heels and refuse to educate itself about things that it doesn't understand. Love doesn't cross out someone else's feelings and write its own on top. Love doesn't sweep the hard things under the rug and refuse to talk about them. Love calls us to look honestly at ourselves and our world, even when we don't want to. You might never get personally super excited about Black Lives Matter or the refugee crisis or whatever it is. You may never make clean water for all people across the earth your particular passion, but we cannot pretend that these are not real issues not real problems, and we cannot try to stop other people from trying to help solve them. Now, I know it may not have been anyone in this congregation that defaced the Post-its, and surely that's never a phrase I thought I got from the pulpit, deface the Post-its. But someone did it, whether it was someone in here or not, and we can't be that place that pretends those things don't happen, right? The fact that it did happen shows me that whether it's inside these walls or outside of these walls, there is still a lot of misunderstanding about the Black Lives Matter movement, first thing. Whether it is inside these walls or coming from outside of these walls, there is still a desire to pretend that we don't face some serious human rights issues around our world and here at home. Whether it is coming from inside or outside of these walls, we have to respond the only way we know how, the only way we believe will move us forward, and that is that we have to respond with listening ears and listening hearts and love, with invitation, with openness, with a willingness to be changed, even as we attempt to change the world. We have to respond with the biggest and greatest love we know and can muster, the one that flows through each of us, binds us, the one that glows in the ether and can be seen a million miles away. The human and transcendent love inherent in each of us.
Each week we share our, I can't find those.
Someone messed up. There you go.
Sorry, I couldn't have lived it. Each weekend we make an offering from the bounty we are blessed to enjoy. We do this in a spirit of love and generosity, aware that we have benefited from those who have gone before, those who in turn gave generously. Our offering goes to support the work of love and justice undertaken by this community. If you are a visitor, there is no expectation that you participate in the offering. Consider yourself our guest. This month's Share the Plate recipient is Resurrection of Brooklyn Relief. The offering will now be given and gratefully received.
In the poem Claire read, when Thetis looks at the shield that Hephaestus, the iron worker, is making for her son, the hero Achilles, she looks for images of love and kindness and life and thriving. And instead she finds images of war and violence and sorrow. And she walks away knowing that the shield bearer, Achilles, will find his own death soon. What are we seeing when we look at the shield of life? Are we seeing it the way Edgar Mitchell does? Are we seeing that single blue dot unified by the very fact of life, random and seemingly unique in the vastness of space in its ability to sustain life? Are we seeing what Thetis sees in Hephaestus' shield, violence and sorrow and anger and hate? Why aren't we seeing what she wants to see? Life in all its varied forms, thriving and basking in that love-filled ether. Why, when we look around, is there so much hate, so much degrading speech, so much willingness to be cruel and callous with one another? There is so much sexism and racism and prejudice and xenophobia and fear and anger. And yet, we know now that we're all part of this one earth, living and breathing on it and with it. We have proof now that at any moment moving through us and around us are these waves that alter the space-time continuum, that move through us in ways we can't feel. The waves move the surface of the lake and cause things to touch that maybe never would have, but for these imperceptible motions. We know that things are not static and concrete the way they seem. That all the time things are changing in ways monumentally large and infinitesimally small. We can choose to be grounded in love and open to that change. We can choose to live lives of respect and compassion. We can choose to listen more than we speak, and to invite people rather than shutting them out. We can choose to explore what we don't understand rather than hiding behind ignorance. We can choose to define love not by the narrow confines, but by expansive and vast ways that love manifests itself in this world. And then we can choose to embody an ethics of love by being open and understanding, compassionate and kind. And if we do this, if we can show the way in this way, if we can live righteously knowing we will make missteps, have false starts, stumble, but if we can live in this way, knowing that we can love one another and move forward anyway, despite those missteps, then we have a shot at making this world a place we want our children to live in. We have a shot at deeply understanding that unity that is so grand at 1,000,000 miles away and so personal when it sits beside us. My hope for this community on this Valentine's Day is that we can recommit ourselves to these kinds of lives, that we can recommit ourselves to living lovingly, to being forces of good, lights of love in the world. So may it be. Amen. Please rise in body or spirit. We're switching things up from your order of service. I apologize. We're actually going to do 131. Sorry, Judge Bill. It's one you know well. It is Love Will Guide Us, 131. It's a good anthem for Valentine's. 131. No, 131. I'm sorry, I'm just confusing you all over the place. You look good.
If you
roses you will smell or chocolates you will eat. And whatever you have planned for Lent, however much chocolate you will give up, or complaining you won't do, may you find today and in the days to come that your indifference wanes and your love grows. May you find today and in the days that come that your walls come down and your acts of kindness go up. And may you remember today and in the days to come that you are a child of this vast universe and that you are surrounded by an ether filled with love. Go in peace, go in love.